So we're here with Nicola Rose, and you directed and wrote Gabrielle?
Yes, exactly.
And produced too? Did you, I guess?
Yes, also produced.
Yeah, so did it all.
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to ask you, like, how'd you come up with the name Gabrielle? What was the name there?
Interesting question. I have thought about that because for a while I didn't remember, and I think that's because it was one of those names that just felt like this is what the character should be named. Kind of like sometimes you're writing something very off the cuff and characters kind of just tell you what their names are. But it's also a family name on my mother's side, so maybe there's there's a lot of Gabrielles and Gabriels going back generations. So that was my mom's grandfather. So I don't know, maybe that had some influence too.
And you wanted to have it as a title of the name of the person or the character.
Yeah, exactly. Because in this particular case, the film had a couple other working titles, but nothing really fit with the tone of it until it's like, okay, let's just give it the girl's name. And then it felt as though that was the most natural way for it to be.
And how did you come up with the storyline for it? Was it something you had for a long time and you wrote it down, or?
Yeah, it took me actually several years to realize I should write it down for a movie because, well, let me see. I like the character of Gabrielle. I signed up for ballet when I was about 12 years old, 13 years old. So really, a bit older than kids generally. They're like 3 or 4 when they sign up for their first class. And so I had a bit of a rocky experience with that. Not exactly what's depicted in the movie, which is, pretty fictional, but a little rooted in reality, a little bit. Yeah. And years later, I was watching a film festival. I went to a film festival and I saw a wonderful movie that had to do with a child who wanted to join a choir at her school, and the teacher, who was kind of sadistic, divided the choir into kind of the haves and the have-nots. It was like only some kids were allowed to sing, and everybody else had to lip sync, and that was like the good kids and the bad kids. And without spoiling the endings, film is called Sing. It's from Hungary, and it won the Oscar that year for like best short film, so it was no slouch. In the ending, the kids actually managed to get a very satisfying kind of revenge on the teacher.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Poetic, it's very beautiful and super satisfying. And I was watching it and I started crying in the theater, not because it was emotional, but because it was just so perfectly done. And when I look back at that film, I can see the end coming now. I'm like, how did I not like? But at the time, it was new, and the filmmaker's intention worked. You don't see it coming the first time. Yeah. And so that was what ultimately I was texting with, it was probably my mom I was telling about the film afterwards. And I was like, this reminds me of, this experience of taking ballet from somebody who didn't, want kids outside the box to succeed. And anyway, long story short, all of that kind of metamorphosed into Gabrielle and her teacher and everything that became that film.
Now, this wasn't your first one. You've done others before this, right? So that was...
Yeah, Gabrielle was my third film.
Mm-hmm. So what got you interested in making films?
Good question. I started out acting before I ever started directing. And I sort of started directing theater before I started directing film. Yeah. So everything's a little staggered. I think the order I did things was act in theater, act in film, direct theater, and then finally, hey, I could direct film. I sort of put everything together. Took me a while, but I got there. And the first thing I did was make a web series, which was my sort of, that was my film school. That was my boot camp. Yeah. It was really fun, actually, but I did most things wrong, honestly. I was really lucky because I was surrounded by 99% of the people working on it were wonderful and supportive, and they were professional, but they loved to just like laugh and have fun and get things done. And so there was nobody there saying the stuff that I had to learn later the hard way, that people were going to say, you don't know how to do this. And that was my first like real film or two. That was my that was my real boot camp where I learned, oh, like, there are actual procedures you have to go through for pre-production and production.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to learn, right?
I think
learn on the
learning
job that way.
kind of like the only way you can learn, because otherwise you're basically, I don't know. I talk to people who are in film school, and I never went to film school. And sometimes I wish I had, for the connections or for the technique. But people always say, "Yeah, but you don't actually learn squat until you get out of school." So
yeah, that's true. Once you start, that's why I teach high school for TV film, and I try to get the kids to go outside and do things. Yeah, because I'm like, you can't. Well, but we do what we can. We do it. I prepare them for film school, because a few of them are in film school now that I've taught. So,
oh, that's awesome. It's actually really important that you get them doing that while they're in, high school, because like I didn't have any experience even in college. Our film program was very theoretically based, tons of reading, but did you ever get your hands on a camera? Like, not unless you specifically like signed up for that one class.
Unfortunately this year it's a crazy year, because we're online, then we're in school, then we're online. It kept going back and forth. So it's like theory this year.
Well, sometimes you can't avoid. That's just the world situation. But it's cool. I would have loved to. Well, I didn't know I wanted to do this when I was like 16, but I would have loved to have that experience back then.
So
sounds invaluable.
When did you start acting?
I was much younger then. I was about 10 when I started acting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I went to theater camp. I was, just doing the thing kids do. And I think I realized it was something I wanted to do professionally just a couple years later. And I was just going through life with blinders on for years. Just acting was all I was ever going to do. Then when I was 28, 26, something like that, let me see here. I started directing films about 6 years ago, and right around that time I quit acting. And I realized, hey, I'm actually like, I didn't do it on purpose. I just realized directing is really fulfilling. I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders and not just like one cylinder, which is acting.
Have you put yourself in your films and directed yourself at all ever?
That was my first film I did. And my web series. My web series and my first film were my two things that I put myself in. And then after that, I just kind of didn't feel the need to do that again. I was
kind of fades, right? I've done that too.
Fades
away. It's like, I don't want to put myself in it, No.
Yeah. After a point, it's like, okay, this is worn thin. And in my case, it wasn't. I actually really liked the experience of being on both sides and, sort of using both halves of my brain, I guess, going from this side to that side of the camera. But then when we got to my next film, which was basically about much younger people, like, preteens, there was not really a role for me in that. And at that point, I was just like, I'm not going to shoehorn myself into this as somebody's mom. I'm just going to direct. And I've been so happy just doing that ever since.
How is it directing younger people, or like teens or younger students?
I actually really love it, because I feel like they naturally have so much to give. Teenagers, and I mean, you work with teenagers, so you know what they're like, but I feel as though there's just so much raw energy coming off these people at that age. And it's like, your job as the director is to harness that and fine tune it into a good performance. But
I heard recently a director was saying, when you're working with kids, you only get about 2 takes. And then after that, you lose it. So you need the first 2.
That sounds like really young kids that they're talking.
Yeah, maybe about. younger. Yeah, probably.
Teenagers, you can do a lot of takes.
That's
it
true.
Usually isn't good at first and gets better later. It's kind of the opposite.
Okay.
Closer to adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't really get other than just teaching with the kids. I haven't experienced that, which I probably will one day. We'll see.
But with little kids, though, I'm about to find this out. Actually,
you're directing.
Find this out. My feature, we have a couple scenes with little kids. Not a lot, but just enough to make me nervous.
So that brings me to the point. What are you up to now? You're working on a feature?
Yeah, exactly. I'm my producing partner and I are in pre-prod on a feature that's gonna take place with all COVID precautions in June, when hopefully there will be less COVID precautions to take. But we'll see.
June, hopefully. I hope so.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I keep saying this, and people are like, "Oh my God, you're over planning it." Yeah, probably, but like, we have to plan as though things are going to be just as bad as they are right now, because otherwise you can't. Well, you know.
Hopefully it won't be, but you got to plan for it. Yeah.
Oh God, I hope not. Yeah.
I was hoping, like, well, we'll see. But we thought. I remember when this first started, I was like, 2 weeks.
I know we all were. I thought
right, a year,
top.
over a year.
So, here we are. What is it? 9 months, 10 months.
Yeah, and it's just going to keep going. But and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think everyone adjusted as much as we could.
I'm actually sort of amazed. I mean, I have my bad moments where I think, what's the point? You know, I get into a dark frame of mind. But basically, I'm astounded at the human race's potential to adapt to bad things.
Absolutely.
I was watching people out at the park today. You know, at the dog park, like they're wearing masks, but they're still, you know, throwing the ball for the dog because you have to. Your dog doesn't know what's going on. You know, it doesn't change just because. So we've gone on, the lucky ones of us, you know, we've gone on living our lives because you don't really have that much of a choice. It's kind of astounding, really.
So how long, Gabrielle, how long has it been out there playing? So did you get to see it play in theaters?
Yeah, I did. Gabrielle's actually a little older.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so. So you got to at least experience a little bit of that before, because there's some people that got to like one right before. Never got it at all, you know.
Yeah, no, we premiered in September of 2019. So yeah, we got to, for 5 months, we got to see it in theaters, and there were quite a few festivals that ran it in the first 5 months. So I think I got to see it maybe 5 times, and yeah, that meant a lot because, well, you know, you get to hear the reactions, and of course, in a situation like that, like being online, you know, if you're lucky, you get to see the comments or somebody emails you. And actually, people have emailed me each time that it's, because there's always somebody who wants to tell me about their experience of bullying when they were a kid.
One good thing about having it online is so many people get to see it.
That's the thing, is that your audience gets multiplied like tenfold, I imagine. I mean, based on the numbers I've heard.
Instead of seeing it in a theater with maybe 30 people.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, 30 if you're lucky, you know.
If you're lucky, if it's that could be 5, you know.
I've had that happen too, and that's always kind of sad because it's like, oh man, you know, you're in this great theater and there's like 5 people there just because it's at a weird time of day or it's in a weird location.
Yeah, so that's why this was pretty good. It was like, you know what, we had at another festival, we had 6,000 people watch it online. I'm like, when is 6,000 people gonna watch at our festivals?
I know. I mean, I love live audiences and all that, but come on, I'll take the 6,000 viewers over.
You never know. Someone will watch it, like it, and be like, try to get, like you said, email you, and who knows?
You hear from people. I'm sure you've heard from people at festivals who love the content.
Absolutely. So, well, we talked about what you were doing next. Is Gabrielle going to play in some more fest online, or hoping in the future at a fest that, well, we might still have Brightside somewhere?
Yeah. Well,
you got more lined up?
We do. Yeah. Brightside is one of several that have postponed, and this has actually had the effect of extending Gabrielle's festival run way into like a year longer than it would have. Just fine. I don't really mind. But so right now we're playing at the LA Children's Film Festival, which is online. I think they're streaming on Vimeo Showcase, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And so that's the current one. Then it's in Borrego Springs, California next month. And I wish I could remember, but there's a whole bunch that are throughout the spring. I think we have something like 5 that we know of left to go, and it's being considered still at a few, but that number has gone way down. So now it's like mostly waiting for the ones that got postponed and moved on. And but it's been really cool because even if they're online, you still get to meet the people who are on the fests, and you still get to sense the sort of, for lack of a better word, you get the vibe, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to submit to this one again. The other thing is I had another short that got finished after Gabrielle, and that one is the one that's now beginning its run. And that one's a comedy, so I would love to see it in theaters.
Yeah.
Don't know if we're ever going to, but
Hopefully, our plan is to have the next Bright Side in the place. We'll see.
One.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. I'm sure it will get pushed a little bit, but it is what it is. But well, thanks for joining me today. It was great talking to you, and
I'm glad we got to chat.
It's always great to see another filmmaker.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like being in person. Anyway, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, we're here with Vanessa Powers, and you wrote and directed in Their Nature, correct?
Yes, I did.
So, where did you come up with the idea?
Actually, sort of very strangely, the film idea came from the group of actors that was involved. Mm-hmm. They were people that I had sort of worked with peripherally on a series of projects, and I was like, I made a list of like the actors that I wanted to work with, and then I was like, what is the story that we can create around kind of showcasing their performances and giving me the opportunity to direct them. And, the three of them being those lovely redheaded ladies, it was like, oh, they could be sisters. And from there, it was kind of like make the family and then make the drama around the family. But the script was originally written basically as a showcase for the actors involved.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a little different, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you were filming. Where did you film that? And like what cabin area was that?
That we filmed in Deerwood, Minnesota, which is about 2 hours north of the Twin Cities. And it was an Airbnb that we obviously got permission to film in. But we did this like really extensive search of like cabins and that would sort of have everything we needed, but also be very aesthetically pleasing. And so we ended up with that cabin, which was really, really great and really cool. So.
And what about the guys behind the scene, your cinematographer and all? Have you worked with them before? Like some of the guys behind the.
Yeah. The cinematographer, he and I went to school together, and it's really funny because we actually have like incredibly different styles. I'm very like, let's sit and feel all the feelings, and he does a lot of action work, like a lot of action pieces. And he had done a couple music videos for me. And then it was like, hey, do you want to try something a little longer? And he's like, well, I must warn you, like nothing I've ever filmed that's longer than 5 minutes has cut together. But I think he's, ridiculously talented. And I thought that he just did a magnificent job. His name is Chris Groshin. And it was really fun to get to work on a longer piece that was a little bit out of his wheelhouse. Because I think that our producer, Jason P. Schumacher, he really encouraged us to do a lot of like lookbook work, and he did a lot of lookbook work with us. So we had this sort of like collection of a lot of European films for the sort of lookbook and the visual inspiration, because I think you end up with like cabins and nature and things like that in European pieces. And I think between Jason and Chris, it was one of the most visually curated pieces of film that I've done, which was really, really neat, especially since we started out with such a focus on the performances that the cinematography was able to shine in its own right was really cool, and I think really speaks to the talent of the people behind the camera.
Yeah, really, it changes the film too. Like I saw a lot of rack focusing shots and things like that between the actors, so you could feel the actors and the camera at the same time. And
definitely. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So it was a little about 20 minutes or so. Were you thinking of maybe doing a feature of this? Because like you have that storyline that could kind of go longer, right?
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where I think the first draft of the script was like 13 pages, and then it just got a little longer and a little longer. And the script that we took to shoot, I think, was 18 pages or something, and I was like, oh, it'll be shorter. And the first edit of the film was like 30 minutes, and at that time, we sort of had a conversation of like, do we try to expand this? Do we try to cut it down? But I think that I've actually done a couple features, and one of the sort of things I was trying to do in this project was like, okay, we need to learn to make short films now. Like we've done features, and I love features, but short films are easier to make. You can make more of them. I think they're a little easier. I shouldn't say they're easier to get into festivals because, you know, there's so many great shorts in the world. But I think that there's more short oriented festivals out there. And so the point really was like to make a short film. But there was like a really long conversation about, do we just do a little more and have a feature on our hands, or do we reduce and have a short? And so it was kind of an exercise in also learning how to take something longer and bring it down to maybe the essentials of the pieces and of the story. Of course, there were a couple little moments that we lost that I loved, but I really ended up really pleased with the 20-minute cut, even though it is on the longer side for a feature, or for a short. So.
Yeah, well, sometimes the shorts are good. They go too long, but when you have a nice story to flow for like 20, 30 minutes, it's good. That's, you know, to keep everyone's attention for that long, because there's a lot of them that you're like, really, you went so long there, you know, you could have done that in 10 instead of 20, but
definitely.
It just depends on the script and the acting and the story, really.
Yeah.
So, were you able to see this in the theater at festivals before all this craziness happened?
No, we got into our first festival basically in March that was going to be in April, and that one was going to be at a theater, and every screening since then has been digital, which is a bummer, because I think it would be really pretty on the big screen. You know, I think that we have a lot of those really well composed, beautiful wides, and we have our beautiful location, and but we have not seen it on the big screen yet, which has been a bummer. But I do like the digital festival, because I think that there is an opportunity for people to tune in, maybe from areas that aren't close enough to the theater, or who maybe wouldn't have the time or have kids and can't get away. And so, like, I think that in some ways, I hope this means that it's, you know, been seen maybe by some people who wouldn't have seen it otherwise. But I do miss the, like, big screen experience of the festival. It's been a year of just like having a lot of success, but a lot of bittersweet success, I think.
We've held off for a long time, and we're still like, oh, maybe we could do it soon, because our next one's not till March. We're like, well, what if we do this in March, have it, and then push the other one? So we're still debating, but I was
Definitely.
like, let's at least interview everybody and get that out there and say we're still going with this. You know?
Right. Yeah, it's like, we're still here, we're still doing it. And I think that, like, you know, nobody knows what next year is quite going to look like yet. And so it's like, there's a lot of hope and a lot of excitement, but I think all of us also, like, have a little bit of fatigue from canceling and postponing and all these things from this year, that it's, you know, do you sort of pull the trigger? Do you keep waiting? And it's tricky. It's not a position that I admire that you guys are in.
And we did a few online. I work on other ones we did, and it went well, and a lot of people watched, so that was good. So I was like, okay, we can do that, but we'd rather have the live, but whatever.
Definitely. Well, and I think especially, like, people miss the live so much right now. I mean, there's something so satisfying about being in the theater and watching something and experiencing a story together, you know. And I think that, like, we've all done a lot of experiencing stories alone in our homes this year. So I think that, like, when the festival returns, it'll be just real popular, I hope. I hope maybe some people turn out for them that previously wouldn't or hadn't.
So were you working on anything new during all this time, like writing, or were you able to film anything?
Yeah. So we actually finished. There was another long short that we had started last year, and there was, like, one scene that had to be filmed outside in good weather. So it's called Man in the Long Black Coat. It's sort of inspired by the Bob Dylan song of the same name, and it's kind of a sort of dark fairy tale, like Midwest noir kind of piece. And we got to finish filming that, which was really, really great this summer when the numbers were lower and it was all outside, you know. And then we were able to film 2 other shorts. One of them is called A Line of Verse, and it's a one take about actors rehearsing for a play. and the other one is called Unfortunate Necessity, and it's a sort of action film about these two hitmen who are friends, and they get assigned on opposite sides of a hit. So we did, when the weather was good and you could do production outside, we did those films, and then we're gearing up for a feature next year that we've been writing and working on the writing a lot, which is a horror film called Sins of the Father. So definitely staying busy, because I'm one of those people, like, when I'm sad, I'm just like, yeah, bury your feelings in productivity. So very productive year.
That's good. That's good. So any other festivals coming up other than this one with the film now?
Well, we were just in the Tokyo International Film Festival, which was really exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And this film, I think this is the next one that it's sort of got coming up. We have a couple other films on the circuit right now. One called Lucky Strike that's going to be playing in a Chicago Fest in the next couple weeks, but I don't think they're doing it live.
Yeah.
And so, and then sort of a whole bunch we're waiting to hear back from, either that were already scheduled for next year or that postponed to next year. But so we're sort of have a couple on the horizon, and then waiting to hear back from a bunch, and sort of have been all over the country and all over the world this year, Within Their Nature and Lucky Strike, and our other film called Midnight Rose. So
great. Well, thanks for joining me for a few minutes here. And like I said, I'll get these things up sooner or later once I get through a bunch of them.
Thank you. So, and if anyone is interested in hearing more about our work, www.oxford-films.com. We keep it pretty up to date. You can at least see trailers for most of what we got going on, and we try to link to the festivals that we're in and that type of thing. So definitely check that out.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to promote?
No, that's it. That's great. We work hard, we have fun. We hope you enjoy the stories we tell, and thanks so much for doing this interview today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
And all right, so we're here with James Dowd, and you have 3 short films in the festival. I looked back, I was like, there was 3 because it's been so long. I'm like, oh, there's 3 of them.
Yeah. No, appreciate the opportunity, and 3 films, 2 in competition, and I made the 3 films last spring over the quarantine. Had to do something to keep myself kind of creatively sane, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun being a part of the fest, even though it's going to be different. Always enjoyed being at the Brightside Film Fest. Always, my students have been there and have had a lot of success. So it's a cool, different perspective for me to have my own stuff there. But it's exciting. It's exciting to have a showcase for not just my films, but to see other filmmakers and see what they've got.
I just noticed my lighting's changing, and I'm like, the sun must be moving outside, because I had the light on brighter, and then the sun was hitting. Now I just see it moving. I'm like, oh no.
Just say it's a special effect. It's cool, man.
So I'm still thinking about that kind of stuff. It never ends, even though we're on break. So are you enjoying your break here?
Yeah, it's some downtime is always good. I have 2 little kids, 8 and 3, so they keep me busy. But it's nice just to have a little reprieve and to just be home with them. Obviously, they're off from school too, so it's nice to just be able to kind of enjoy time with them, and just have them play and go outside and go sledding and do all that kind of good stuff.
So you were able to do these short films. When did you complete? Was it over the summer, or was it during the school year?
So the 3 films I have in competition, actually I did over the spring of last year. They were for like 24-hour and 48-hour film fests, respectively. And so when I saw the opportunity to make something, I did it, and a lot of it, obviously, it's a one-man show, right?
Yeah.
I my phone to a floor fan and film myself, and then tried to dance it up with some special effects and some After Effects. And I kind of like that finite window, like, hey, you have this much time to make what you can, send it off and see what happens. And it's just fun to have that experience. It's fun to be creative. Like I said, you couldn't have a crew last spring. No one, we had to follow social distancing, and so do what you can, but it's exciting to have a showcase for him.
And yeah, it's just you. So how difficult was it to do? It's just you.
Yeah, so I had to be creative. One of my inspirations is Robert Rodriguez, the director, and he says, not having the money and not having the resources is the greatest gift you can give your creativity. And he's right, because I kind of had to come up with an idea quick, and they're basically all sort of one of them, the New Jersey Devil one I did, is kind of like a Blair Witch-esque style. So I'm holding the camera and I'm running around with it. And then the other ones are kind of a sci-fi. So it's almost like I'm talking into a camera on a ship. So those were my only really ways to do it. And then, like I said, I used some blue wrapping paper I got at the dollar store, and I did some makeshift blue screen, and then some special effects and After Effects, and used an old painter suit for my space suit, and then there it is. So
yeah, so it was mostly in editing. You had a lot of fun in editing with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's some really, really awesome tools out there. I'm sure tons of royalty-free stuff, royalty-free music, royalty-free green screen effects. Footage Crate is a great resource too. That website, you can sign up and get free downloads. And so yeah, I just kind of had to make the most with the least and dance it up. I actually did a little old school Star Wars homage as well in one of the films. The opening shot is like a pod floating. So I took a little like thimble-sized toy and then keyframed it down, through space. And one of my talented alumni did some macro photography for me with marbles, and I have some planets and some moons and stuff. Oh, wow. So again, just kind of trying to pull resources and do what I can. But I thought they came out okay. Obviously, if I had more time, if I had more resources, more crew, they would have been better. But given the circumstances, I was happy just to do something.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always fun to just keep working and doing stuff and exploring new things. And were you using Adobe?
Yeah, so I have the Adobe suite. So I used for this obviously Premiere, and used After Effects, and that's really it. I mean, I have the suite, but again, when time is so limited, you can only do so much. But Adobe is great because all the programs play nice.
Yeah.
And, you can do stuff in Audition and it can go into Premiere smoothly, or do stuff in After Effects. So I'm fortunate to have that courtesy of my school and to be able to use those resources.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with us is they work, but our computers aren't really compatible with the new versions. They're like you should have more bit than we do on the computers,
right? For
the Adobe, so it's a little slow at times. We got the beach ball.
Yeah, that's
fun beach ball.
I always thought the Apple Store should sell beach balls. They could make a fortune.
I know, right?
Every single editor would buy one as a joke. But yeah. So yeah, I've using the Creative Cloud, the most updated version. That one does lag a little bit for me from time to time. So yeah. I use 2018 usually when I want to just get something done and not have to worry about the lag or any compatibility issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, I go through the same issues, but
the joy of technology, right?
I know, right? I mean, it's great and all, but it's like, come on, I'm waiting here.
Yeah, I can't. I always tell my students, save. Just Command S every time you do something. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'll work for 20 minutes and forget to save, and then lose it, and then
absolutely
have to just face plant emoji to myself because I know better, but.
There's plenty of times where I get angry, but I know it was my fault.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially with the students, I'm like, you should have saved that. Or wait a second, I was the one doing that. Okay.
So is the Bright Side is fully virtual, right, this season?
Well, we don't know yet. We're still debating. We're doing. I thought we'd do the interviews for now and see in the new year, like sometime in January, really decide. We do have another one in March, but we could push that till May and have this late March if we can, and just wait and see, or we just go online. So we're kind of debating as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to see. I mean, not just your own projects, but to see anything in front of an audience, I think is kind of the best part. You can laugh together. You can be scared.
Yeah.
You know, it's the movie theater experience is second to none. So, you know, hopefully looking forward to being in person because there's nothing like sitting in a crowded room with the lights down and everybody watching your stuff. Online doesn't have the same quite experience, but like you said, you do what you can. We'll see how it shakes out.
Maybe we could do like kind of a both thing, like just like school. Like some people can go see it, maybe some local people who are, you know, don't mind in March by then, but maybe we had like because of capacity. Who knows? I'm not sure what the capacity is.
Right.
So, but there are 2 rooms, so we could always. I had a whole crazy weird schedule of like 40-minute sets upstairs, downstairs, like less people, you know. So we'll see. You know, our other one we can push back because March is coming, so I know we're going to end up pushing that too. So.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, it's like I said, appreciate the opportunity. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Like I said, my students have always been there, so for me, just to have my own stuff is exciting and terrifying. And but awesome and a great just a great opportunity. Like I said, just to be creative and showcase stuff. And I'm sure many of the same things that I ran into, people who make their films who are submitting, right, probably have the same, you know, quarantine issues that we all had last spring and now.
Yeah, it's still going. Oh boy. But yeah, so it's been interesting, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has been, and hopefully we'll get back to being in the classroom and being around people and you know, getting back to just doing production. You know, Hollywood's doing their stuff, TV shows.
They're doing it. So
socially distance protocols and you know, now there's a vaccine, so hopefully, you know, we'll all get back to normal sooner than later. And looking forward to being around people who are passionate about film and filmmaking and production. That's really the best part is, you know, having those people in your corner and having those people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough with this whole interview thing here, and I would have never discovered StreamYard and being able to do this and talk to people from all over. So that was something I got out of this. So.
Yeah, you actually, I'm jealous. I see you're talking to celebrities, you're meeting people and always interviewing.
Because they have nothing else to do.
Well, I'd like to think that it's because you're a good interviewer and they want to be a part of it. But maybe them being having cabin fever is another issue too. But hey, it works out for everybody.
It does. It works. That's why I said I won't say it, but I'll be like, yeah. And it's easier to get in touch with these people now too. It's like, hey, would you like to do an interview? And they're like, all right. Why not? I mean, nothing else to do.
Their pajamas, right?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So it's been fun. It's been fun. At least that's been fun.
Yeah, right. If there's a silver lining.
Yeah. So do you want to promote anything or say anything else before we? No,
I just want to thanks for having me, and looking forward to the Brightside Fest. In March, and looking forward to seeing not just my films and see how they do, but also, other categories and other films. I think when you see films, sometimes you can take inspiration from some of the things that you see, and you say, hey, that's a cool shot, or hey, that's a cool song, or just kind of like nitpicking those little pieces out and saying, hey, I didn't think of that. I could use that, maybe something like that in my next movie. So it's always cool to get exposure, and I think your students also do a great job too. So. I want to, kind of see what we're up against.
I've been showing a lot of short films because, we're on here as well as in school, like just to give them ideas, because to get them flowing, like you can do this very simply,
Right.
A lot of them are struggling. Like they want to go crazy. I'm like, no, simple, keep it simple.
Yeah. For now. And then
for now.
Yeah. Get all the simple stuff out of your system now. And then when we come back, we can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I feel like I'm teaching 4 classes this year. I call it pre-production.
No, you're right, man. Because it's hard. Like we said, it's a collaborative medium. You need a camera operator. You need a director. You need an actor, actress. You need a sound guy.
Yeah.
Or sound person. So without having that, that it's really hard.
Absolutely. So I saw one of these students. They did it's going to be in the next Brightside, but it played around, and they did. It was high school going to college students, and they did like a Zoom dating film, and it was very clever.
Oh, nice.
So like they had people come in and do kind of this stuff here, like we're doing.
Okay.
And it turned out pretty funny. So it was very clever. So I'm like, it can be done, people. It can be done.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a good. Yeah, send me that link, man. I'd be curious, or the name. I'll check it out.
Yeah, yeah. I'll see if I can get it to you. It's
Awesome.
kind of interesting. Yeah, I'll ask them. They're going to be on the next Bright Side, but they're playing in other fests and stuff too. And there are students that were still in high school but going to college, and they did something right before. So
very cool. Well, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate the time and the opportunity, and
yeah.
look forward to seeing you in person. Hopefully, we can meet up at the fest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward to the online screening.
Great. Yeah, thanks for coming on, and I'll keep you updated on what we're doing.
All right, sounds good. But always a pleasure.
All right, you too, man.
Thanks.